Welcome back to another video and full software rig versus full proper real rig. We are going to get straight to it, but let me just explain a couple of things first. So if you can see the computer behind me in the shot, everything you're hearing, whether it's effects, amps, whatever, is the software. Everything is not real. If you can see the amp behind me, everything you're hearing for the reverbs, the effects, the amp, it's all pedals and the amp and the cab and the two microphones. Now the amp is being recorded into the computer. You know, that's how I'm recording. But in terms of the source, everything is real. So I think I've got loads of things I want to cover in this video. So hang around at the end and please do get involved because we're going to go down the rabbit hole. But I will chapter everything through the video for you to skip back and forth. But let's get all the sound comparisons out the way now. So there you go then, you've just heard all of the sound comparisons. And to start with, rather than talk about which one I think's better as you've just heard it, I just want to say about what it's like to actually use both of these rigs for me here. Because if I'm using the software, I'm only ever hearing it through some small speakers or most of the time through my headphones. Whereas anytime I play the pedal board and a real amp, it's always much better in the room. How that comes across on YouTube though is a totally different thing, and whether you need that, whether you're making your own videos, is a totally different thing. So I'm going to chapter this talking section as well, because like I said, we're going to go right in the rabbit hole here of all the different things and the do's and don'ts and the time and the place and all that sort of thing. So let's start off with the first point. First point then, what is the differences between the software and hardware in terms of what job it's doing kind of thing? Because obviously the software is trying to emulate that, not that particular amp, but you know, that real thing, the real pedals, the real amps. That will always be the thing that any generation of amp software is trying to be. But there's a lot more to it than that I think people don't necessarily think about. So let's say you preferred the sound of the software in this video on all examples. What the hardware is doing there, I've got two microphones, I've got my amp, and that's all I've got. Usually in a studio to record that, you would then have a whole chain of different rack modules, 500 series modules, all analog tone shaping tools. You look at any studio, and a lot of YouTubers as well, bigger YouTubers, they've got entire racks of audio processing gear so that when they record their real amps, their real pedals, the end result is a much higher quality recording that sounds great but isn't necessarily what you were hearing if you were in that room. Whereas when you go the software route, a lot of that stuff is built into that software. So let's say you've got your computer, you plug straight in and you load up your favourite amp VST, whether it's neural, amplitude, whatever, guitar rig, whatever it is you've got, and you load that up. In order for that package to be, you know, an out-of-the-box record-ready sound, all of those things in the chain, not just the amp and the pedals, but everything has had to have some kind of element put into it. So with the software, it's doing so much more. And I just find that insane because, like, I've recently priced up because I love my amplifiers and my real pedals, and I want to get that across, you know, as high quality as I possibly can, which is a point we'll come back to in a later chapter, by the way. But I recently priced up how much it would be for me to get like a 500 series rack and a basic selection of analog tone shaping gear for my guitars. And by the time I'd spent about an hour looking into that, I'd already spent another 4 or 5 grand there and then that I would need. Whereas the software, it's kind of all built in. It's all done for you. It's just buried in there somewhere to give you a out of the box ready sound. So that is the end of my first point. Just think about the two things they're actually doing. You know, that is just doing its own thing, and then there's a million other things in the chain. Whereas the software is trying to be a very complete package. Two totally different things. So that finishes that point. So let's move on to my next point. So my next point then is what about, you know, what we haven't heard today? Things like Kempers, Quad Cortex, Helix, you know, whatever modeler it might be. And for me, a modeler like that, it's kind of cool because it sits in between the two. It's highly software based, more and more and more as the newer ones come out. You need to be using software, menus, etc., etc. But at least you do get an actual thing to touch and to play with and to carry around. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. And like I would say, especially if you want to be playing live and recording. Let's say you've got into guitar and you know that you want to go live, and you know you want to do playing at home and recording. That's probably the best all-round option. But for me, I've kind of had my eggs in two separate baskets, you know, with the software, complete digital thing from the computer, or my more recent love for amps and buying pedals and building my board and looking for newer amps. So that's kind of my thoughts on the in-between ground, if you like, the modeler. So let's move on to another point. So the next point then is something we kind of just touched on a second ago. But what if you're just starting out and filming for like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or whatever is something that you know you want to do, and you're just on the edge of that rabbit hole, looking down into like, oh man, I need so much stuff. And if you only watch YouTube or videos, you don't make them yourself. I'm honestly a little bit jealous because you can concentrate your resources on exactly what it is you want. You don't have to worry about, oh, what about my mic collection? What about my computer? What about my interface? What about my monitors to record back what I'm saying? And like for me, if I didn't do YouTube, I would have just I would be in my element with my own rig, because all the funds that I've spent over the years would have just gone one way instead of kind of spreading out, to kind of get the best quality I can and going down that rabbit hole all the time. And I watch a lot of guitar YouTubers, and like I watch their channels and I'm like, oh man, what's the next bit of gear I need? I really wish my recordings were as good as theirs. A good sort of comparison, I think, between my channel and someone else's who does this a lot better is Colin at the Guitaristas. If you watch his videos, the production is so nice. Like he's using real amps, much nicer microphones. He's in a more dedicated space, and it shows on the video. But again, though, when you're watching someone like that, just think that not only has he got his guitars and his amps and stuff like that, he's got a whole nother basket of investment to just create the stuff in the first place. And if you're right on the edge now of like wanting to do that, and where do you start? It can be stupidly intimidating and sort of demoralizing in a way as to how you're going to get to that kit. And I've been feeling like this for quite a while, and I do my best on these videos. But recently, my two favourite channels to watch for guitar stuff, by a mile as well, the hours I'm putting in on these channels going back, is Paul Stafford Cook and Tom Bukovac. Both incredible players. I mean, Tom Bukovac you probably know of already, but the guy is, to watch him play, it just makes me want to play, and it makes me happy to see him and learn from him, and I just love watching him. And Paul Stafford Cook is just on his own thing altogether, like the way he plays guitar. But what do they both have in common, other than the fact they're both good players? Both of them do away with everything I've just said, and they just concentrate on the gear they want as if they were never recording in the first place, and they record videos with just an iPhone. No production, barely any editing, it's just an iPhone sat on the side, it captures what it captures, and up it goes onto YouTube. And like, there is nothing wrong with it. I said I watch them for hours, and not at any point am I like, oh, the sound's not very good, or the video, I wish it had nicer, I don't know, definition or whatever. So if you are starting out, and this is to me as well, like looking back, get yourself out of that rabbit hole and just use whatever you've got, because like they go to show that you don't need to be like going crazy on all this kind of gear. If you're doing videos, set up an iPhone, and most of the time for videos that is absolutely fine. So hopefully I've made some kind of point there, and we'll get back to sort of more relevant points just now. So you might have noticed then that up to now, and thank you if you're still watching up to now through my talking after the playing, I haven't spoken really at all about the actual rigs today. You know, what pedals have I used, what amplifier, what interface, what software. I haven't mentioned that, and the reason for that is, and this kind of links back to what I was just saying, but if you're just starting out and you're just blown away by all this stuff and where do you spend your money sort of thing, the bottom line is, and I'm saying this as someone who has gone way too deep into this rabbit hole over a few years now, it just does not matter what amp you're playing through, or if you're playing through the software, or if you're playing through a modeler. I promise you that it does not matter. All that matters is that you love it, and that you want to do it, and you like the sound of it. And, you know, it inspires you basically. That is all that matters. If you are playing, whatever you're playing through, whatever sound you have, whatever direction you're trying to go in, that's all that matters. Nothing else does. And that's why I didn't, you know, in this particular video, I wasn't even interested in explaining, you know, this is what I've got, this is what I've got. It wasn't about that. It was just to say, here's how two different rigs sound and what each of them are kind of trying to do. But let me know in the comments, you know, on any of these points and which one you did prefer after it was recorded over YouTube. As I say, in the room, it's a very different kind of experience sort of thing. But, you know, and if you are interested in gear, obviously I'll happily, you know, do videos on stuff like that. But I wanted this video to be much more about stripping all that away, giving two examples, and then coming back and just saying, it doesn't matter. Just enjoy what you've got and just have fun and learn and be inspired by music and things you see and things you hear. And that for me is way more important than like chasing rabbit holes and spending hours looking at different gear. Because if you're doing that, you're not playing guitar, are you, at the end of the day? And that's the thing that bonds us all is, you know, we all love to play guitar. So that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and please do get involved down below with, you know, with your own counterpoints or agree, disagree, because I've played a lot of songs in this video that are probably gonna sink the video because it'll be copyright somewhere and then YouTube will just bury it. So the more you like and comment, the better, and I will definitely be in there having the chat with you as well. So thank you, and I will see you on the next video.